Welcome to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Sit back, relax, and let's chalk up a game plan with your host and coach, David Bischlein.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. I am your host, David Bischlein. I want to thank you guys for listening in today. We've been doing this now for a while, and I appreciate all the listens and all the likes and all the reviews. If you haven't left a review or a 5-star rating, please do so. It does help get the word out about the podcast. And man, we are finally into spring. I hope you guys are having a great spring. It depends on where you live, I guess. But for us in the northern North America area, it is spring, and the weather is turning. It's starting to get a little warmer out. I'm coaching spring football, like I've said, so that's almost over. Then we're going to hop straight into baseball. My kids have all started their stuff. It has become from very little to a lot, feeling like overnight. But it's been good, and I'm excited. Hope everybody is doing well. All right, so this week's Adoption View, our charity, our podcast, is going to be one that is near and dear to my heart and also near and dear to our guest's heart, and that is the Sparrow Fund. So the Sparrow Fund is a organization that actually, their mission is to care for caregivers. What that means is they are serving families in foster care and adoption, as well as those who are vulnerable children through individualized support, education, and specialized programs to encourage, connect with families to a larger community. Basically what they do is, number one, they offer scholarships or a grant for medical review, which is you will send your adoptive child's medical information to a doctor. They then look at it. That's huge. But not only that, they then look after the adoptive and foster parents. So for us in our situation, when our first placement didn't go through, they were there to kind of counsel us and help us. Kelly and Abby, who we've worked with specifically, phenomenal people. And I love them. They have been so supportive. We are actually, my wife and I are going to be doing a 3-week, kind of a virtual conference with them. I know our guest today, he sat in on a panel for adoptive families that have biological children. They are just caring for the caregiver, and I love them for it. And they answer all my stupid questions. And it's just been awesome. I love it. And they offer training, and I know that they'll get with us before we leave, but also get with us when we get back from adopting our child. Love them. They're just great. So if you're looking for an organization to support, the Sparrow Fund is definitely it. Guys, we're not going to waste any time. It is just such a good interview today. I will let you know we had a little bit of internet issue, had to switch rooms in the middle of it, so I do apologize for that. But today's guest is Bjorn Anderson. Yes, Bjorn, what a great name. He lives in New Hampshire, but nonetheless, still a great guy. Nothing against New Hampshire. But I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. For all information on Sparrow Fund, for information on our Facebook page, the Twitter, the Instagram will all be in the show notes. And I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Spread the word. And thanks for listening. Enjoy today's episode. All right, guys, we've got a great guest today. He is a young life leader, a father, a husband, an adoptive father, and he is the world's best t-ball coach. I have none other than the great name Bjorn Anderson. Bjorn, welcome, and thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Dave, great to be here. Really excited about it. Been enjoying listening. And really, really glad to be here. And you should know that my parents don't hate me. We're just Swedish. So that's how I got my name. Okay. Hey, and it means brave as a bear in Swedish. Well, if you're, scoring at home. You are now for the listener, Bjorn lives in the wonderful state of New Hampshire. And maybe that's more common up there. Being in the Midwest, you don't see a lot of Bjorns. But it's a great name. I think it's an awesome name. I'm kind of jealous that you have such a great name. You have the best first name, but a very generic last name. Anderson is pretty common. If you go through middle school with the name Bjorn, you deserve an easy last name like Anderson after just years and years of hearing your name mispronounced and butchered by a lot of middle school teachers, So anyways.
Well, I mess up my students' names all the time. So first, for the listener, I really don't know Bjorn. Honestly, I just kind of met him. I had the privilege of hearing him and his wife speak on the Sparrow Fund, which was this week's episode, charitable organization. So him and his wife spoke just kind of about having biological children and then adopting. So he's really the first guy I know nothing about. So we're going to learn together as an audience and myself. So that's how I know Bjorn. They were awesome in their talk. And so I said, I got to get this guy on.
I'll try not to embarrass you, and
I appreciate
bring shame on this great podcast.
It is great. I appreciate my parents listen, so I know that they're listening. So like that.
Hello.
So I like to kind of start off. How are you and your family been doing during COVID, and like maybe what's there some differences you've kind of seen in your family during this time?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody, it has been a weird time. We've never spent so much time together. I grew a beard during COVID because I feel like if there's ever been a time in human history when someone could grow a beard, it's now. And like, what's the worst thing someone's going to say? Hey, you look like you've been in your basement for a year. Like, check, So anyway, so that happened. But, it's we're trying to. After a year of COVID, we've been like spending time at the dinner table, actually just saying, hey, what are some things that we're actually going to miss when COVID's over? And now who knows when it's actually going to be over? Is it ever going to be over? We don't know. But we've just been saying, hey, like we're going to miss that we've had like less activities to run off to in the evenings and more time sitting around the table. And we're going to miss, like coming up with like goofy games to play in our basement and backyard. And so like the time together does force you to do some things like more creatively, which we've enjoyed. So I think we're doing fairly well. Our two oldest boys just went back to in-person school last week. And so they're really excited about that. But overall, people have had it really, really hard. It's been a very hard year. I think overall we're thankful that we've done pretty well and generally enjoyed most of the time. Best purchase we ever made was that we bought a trampoline for our yard, which we happened to set up literally the week before the pandemic hit. It was just amazing timing. We didn't even know how much use we were going to get from that thing. So
that is
a blessing with COVID. Yeah.
We have one as well. Ours has definitely seen better days. It's been yanked on and pulled on. I think we're missing 2 poles. So I have jerry rigged it to keep. I have like an old push broom pole that's holding part of it up, but it works. Yeah, trampoline.
Nice. Yeah.
Trampoline is a good purchase. Then you just get super nervous when any kids come over and want to jump on it. You're like, oh, lawsuit. Yes,
that is true. Right. Yeah. Lawsuit waiting to happen, but for COVID, it was great. So.
We actually.
So yeah, we're doing okay, but very, very weird year for everybody.
We invented a game. My kids and I, we went down to the tennis court one day and we didn't have rackets. So we just started kind of playing tennis with a tennis ball, but we'd have to throw it. And for about 3 weeks, we would go out in like the snow and they loved it for about 3 weeks. We haven't played it since. We called it COVID ball. And it was basically tennis without a tennis racket.
Nice.
So you work for Young Life, correct? Maybe you want to explain what Young Life is to the audience.
So Young Life is an outreach to high school and middle school students. It's a lot like a faith-based Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization. So we work generally with students who go to public schools, and we train leaders to build mentoring relationships with those students. And then we gather the students together for large group meetings that we call club, where we just have a ton of fun, build community, have a lot of great games, and we give a short talk about the basics of the Christian faith. A lot of the students who are involved with Young Life might not have a faith background. Some do. And we like to just kind of put the information out there, see how they want to handle it, but just offer them really just genuine relationships with caring adults and with other students as well. And so I'm on regional staff, so I help oversee Young Life in New Hampshire and Maine and Rhode Island in that area. And my wife and I we lead a local Wildlife is the middle school branch of Young Life, very appropriately named, and we lead a local wildlife club in our town of Dover as well, which is Dover, where we live, is the fastest growing city in New Hampshire, Dave, just so you know. So little nugget for your listeners. I don't know how fast New Hampshire is growing as a state in general, but I do live in the fastest growing state in New Hampshire, or fastest growing city.
Well, congratulations.
Hampshire, so.
I'm going to pop you right in here to your warm-up questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, tell me, what is your drink of choice? What are you drinking right now besides the tea that you're drinking right there?
I'm drinking some ginger turmeric tea, although I really would I like ginger ale mixed with cranberry juice. That's a nice drink.
They had that out, I think. My wife, when she was pregnant, I think really liked the Sierra Miss Cranberry, if I'm remembering correctly. That was one of her cravings.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's very similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so that's a nice drink.
All right, what's the one thing that annoys your wife or kids the most?
Ooh, annoys them. I just this evening was telling my kids, my two oldest kids, that they were bickering at each other, and my son said, "Don't ever use that word around me again. Don't use the word bicker." And I said, like, it's already established I'm not cool. I'm in my mid 40s. And he just said, if you want to be cool, like, do not ever use that word. So using words that are not cool with the middle school crowd really, really annoys my children, actually. So
I love it.
That's sort of a recent one.
I like to use, my kids have started using the word cringy. So I'm like, what's up? Cringy. They're like, Dad, stop, Dad. No, bro. I think, man, don't forget where I work, man. I'm a high school teacher. You know, I do this stuff. So they can't get away with some of that. But yeah, they noob and spammer. I get it all.
Maybe I'm cringy to them, I guess, but that's just how it goes as dads in our 40s, right, Dave? So I'm sorry. I should not speculate on your age. Actually, we're just starting this relationship. I'm in my 40s. So,
I am almost 40. I'll be 40 in May, so I'm feeling it.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, so
it's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one. All right, so do you have a TV show? Do you have a TV show, a podcast, a book that you're really digging right now? You can answer them all or just one.
My wife and I watched Ted Lasso over the holidays.
I caught an episode. Popular. That's a great show. Great show.
It's a fun show. It's a feel-good show. We also just wrapped up The Crown. Really enjoyed The Crown a lot. That's a good one. And we're just going to start through the second time on The West Wing, which is an old TV show about the presidency, and then Netflix pulled it. So apparently there is nothing on Netflix anymore except like cartoons for 4-year-olds. So anyways, those are some of our shows that we really like a lot. I'm exposing myself by showing you I'm like right off the top of my head, a lot of shows. Can't name a book, that I would enjoy reading the Bible. It's a good one. It's still, it's got a lot of wisdom. So that's like a cliche kind of answer, but
I'll take it.
Top of mind, it is a good one.
Are you a video gamer?
I'm not a video gamer. Yeah. My kids are really into 2K. And they really into Xbox, especially the sports games. But I'm not. But I loved Nintendo back in the day, growing up in the 80s, played a lot of games, but never really was able to transition into the other, like the newer systems of games. So are you a gamer, Dave?
I do play, not nearly as much as I used to. I'll play with my kids. I'll play with my sons. They'll want to play Fortnite, which I despise. But not a fan, but we'll play a little bit here and there. My son wants to play me in Madden. So when I play my son in Madden, he wants to be,
But you're a football coach.
Right.
So
well, right. But the problem is when I play Madden, I play like I coach. So I want to control the clock. I'm going to run the ball. And he's like, Dad, do something else. Stop running the ball. Pass the ball. And so I'll just drain it. And he's like, where? Do it. And then I'll get mad. Like, why is this safety not getting back where he needs to be? And then I'll stop and I'll go to instant replay and I'm like, all right, my son's name, my oldest, Josh, where's the safety supposed to be? So it should be there. I'm like, that's right. This guy did not do his job. And that's why the play worked. So
you're given like a chalk talk and he just wants the stats, right? He wants like 80 points and a half. And
right.
That's how my kids play Madden.
But it's
right.
funny.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. And I had the privilege of coaching him in football. I let him play for the first time. So he actually kind of,
that's awesome.
He kind of gets it a little bit there. Well, enough about me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share, number one, I'm excited to hear your story. So before I kind of turn it over to you, so Bjorn, the thing I'm really drawn to Bjorn about for the listener is that he has 3 boys, and tell me their names, or not names, their ages.
Yeah. So we have a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and then a 4-year-old are our 3, and they're our bio kids, our biological.
They're biological. And then
you would 3 boys.
And you've adopted, and you're going to tell here in a minute, you've adopted a little girl, and that's exactly where we're at. So when I heard your story, I'm like, I got to pick your brain. So why don't you just kind of share, as much as you want, your adoption journey, kind of how you got to this place?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I, Abby is my wife, and even before we were married, when we were dating and starting to get serious, we talked about adoption at that point in our relationship, not just before we had kids or before we were thinking about kids, before we got married. We were just saying we really love the idea of adoption. My wife, Abby, has one sister who's adopted. That's been a part of her family. And we just loved the idea really from actually almost a context of the Christian faith that God offers us the chance to be adopted into his family. So we talked about it for years, got married in 2002, and then we had biological children, and then really felt like after 2 biological children that we started the adoption process from the country of Ethiopia in 2012. And we had a number of families we knew that had adopted from Ethiopia. I had traveled there and felt a strong connection to that country. Almost immediately after we started that process, things really, really slowed down from an international adoption perspective. Dave, I know you've talked about it on this podcast a lot about how challenging it is to adopt internationally and how many countries are closing their doors. And that doesn't mean there's less children that need to be adopted internationally. It's just that the restrictions are getting stronger, and it's very challenging. So the process just slowed, and they kept telling us, hey, we think you're going to get a referral. This went on for years and years. And then we ended up having another biological child during that time when we were still waiting, and we had to do just loads of paperwork, and then we had to keep updating it because it was our home study and our fingerprints and all these things were like expiring. And then in 2017, after we'd been waiting 5 years, we had never had a referral from Ethiopia. They actually shut down to international adoption. So they officially, Ethiopian children cannot be adopted to the United States. That ended in 2017.
So when you were adopting from Ethiopia, so you basically waited 5 years and you never got a match. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And it was just, we were in a lot of conversation with our agency, who we really loved and really appreciated all that they were doing. And honestly, Dave, it probably made it a little easier that we did not have a match that fell through because we didn't have a name, a face of a child that we were getting connected to. We were connected with the idea. We were longing to adopt and bring a child into our home, or children. We actually thought about a sibling set. And it was still very hard. But I think if we had a child in pictures, as some of the story that you and your family have walked through just recently, it does make it emotionally more challenging. So we never had a referral. And then after 5 years, Ethiopia ended, or they just closed their doors to an international adoption. I
want to get to that in a minute. So you got to tell us, and I know for guys, we don't like to share. What was that like for 5 years? How did you navigate that? Maybe just internally, but also with your wife, because I can't imagine 5 years of waiting. So kind of, what was that process? How did you?
Well, I will say this, we knew when our paperwork officially went in, we knew it could be a 2 to 4 year wait So we didn't expect, oh, it's going to be 6 months. So we knew it would be a while, but that didn't necessarily make it easier, especially as we hit like 3 years, 4 years, and it was nothing was really moving. And we'd ask our agency, well, how many kids are getting referred, or how many kids are available for adoption? And they're saying, it's like pretty small. Like the government's just not approving these referrals. So, I mean, I do think the challenge is the waiting is very hard. And even, our culture is very instant gratification. When we want things, we get things fast. And so I think that that can be a challenge when you bring that to, kind of the family building experience, especially through adoption. And so I think some of the hardest things was just people outside who didn't really understand adoption or why things took so long, who would ask questions, who meant well, or who would say like, well, why don't you just switch to another country, or why don't you adopt domestically, which are legitimate questions. And there's a huge need for domestic adoption or adoption from other countries, China or other places. But for us, we felt very attached to the country of Ethiopia, and it was a process we were really invested in, and it was just taking a longer time. So it was definitely a faith building exercise, and one that at times made us kind of frustrated or even questioning it. But was definitely something that the waiting was, there's not a word for it. It's just very hard. We don't like to wait. I'm sure a lot of you guys listening are waiting for various things, from maybe like a stimulus check all the way to like just kind of, your family to grow the way you would like it to. And so the waiting is definitely challenging.
I completely understand. What's one of the weirdest things what's a comment that stuck out to you? Because there's probably one that you really got that sticks with you, or had stuck with you.
Yeah, that is a good question. There's a lot of language around adoption, but, I think a lot of people, the interesting thing is that while we were waiting, we did have another biological child, but there were definitely some comments of like, oh, you're waiting for an adoption. Like, why don't you just have more of your own kids? And it's kind of like, well, what they meant was have more biological kids. And it was like, well, when we adopt a child, that will be our own child. Like that's not, and that's a very common thing that people say sometimes. And I probably said years ago before I started to be involved with the adoption process. So it's kind of like, oh, well, we'll just have some more of your own, and it's like, well, we want to adopt a child from Ethiopia that can be ours, and so I think that was definitely a challenging thing for us.
Oh, I know that's one thing I'm trying to prepare myself for, is the comments that will come, especially since our daughter, will be Korean. It'll be pretty obvious probably. Yeah. From that. So that's probably the thing that I'm worried about, maybe top of my mind a little more. So it's just the little comment and how I'm going to react, because sometimes I don't always react the best way. Not the young life leader way, like I should.
Well, there's a beauty to it, is this this multiracial family that you're building, but it is, it does look a little bit different. And so, there is a preparation of that. And then as the children get older, they notice the differences, obviously. And many of the people listening, I'm sure, have multiracial families and have walked through that. And then just walking through that with the child and what it means to be raised in a multiracial family, it is a big deal. So I think preparing yourself for a lot of those comments and questions that people mean well, legitimately mean well, but don't always know how to express them, or they don't come out the right way.
I know a struggle, and this is real talk. I'm just being real. Like, recently with, this was being recorded not long after those Atlanta shootings. Happened. Yeah. And adopting a child from Korea, like, it's a call to action for me. And I know that people I know that, I'm friends with, they look at it very differently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll come to that, but you ask, like, you mentioned people maybe saying to you, oh, like, that's too risky, or that's a challenging thing. And I felt like that when we started the adoption process, that there was a lot of well-meaning people who said, oh, that's really risky to adopt someone like that. That might not go well. And I heard many people would tell me horror stories of adopted children that had really bad experiences and didn't connect with their families. And it was almost like it felt like to dissuade me maybe from adoption. And I don't disagree that there have been many challenges for children that are adopted, just as there's a lot of challenges for kids who are not adopted, I mean, and my response was always like biological kids can have a lot of challenges and struggles, and there's no guarantees in parenting. Like there is no guarantee that any child, biological or adopted, foster, whatever, are going to be problem free. They won't be problem free, certainly. So it just felt like in anything, in a marriage, like you take a risk in a marriage, you're giving yourself to this other person. And so you open yourself up for what could be challenges. So adoption does carry some more variables, but that was a thing. I would say, getting back to your question about sort of a call to action, having an Indian daughter who's a child of color in our home, has made me really just think of what the experience is of people of color in our country, and what the history has been of people of color in our country, and just see our country and the history of our country through a different light, in the way that, of course, you're going to see the horrible shootings in Atlanta, or in the Atlanta area last week, and how they seemed on some level to target Asian Americans. We don't know all the motives there, but of course, based on like the little girl that is in your family and looking to be referred, you're just going to see that very differently. And so I think that has changed how I think about things, and just like it does help us think more globally kind of about our world, but then also what it is like as a non-white person in America. And I'm saying that as a white person. So not that I can experience it, but I think that's a thought that something that my wife and I have talked a lot about and thought about.
What about the little comments that are probably made that you've heard at least at some point, probably about your daughter? Like that to me is, that has to be hard as a dad to how do you keep your cool in that situation?
Honestly, our daughter's been home about 1.5 years, and we have not heard any of those comments yet. It's been overwhelmingly very positive. That doesn't mean they won't happen. We get a lot of our daughter's very endearing and very cute and very vivacious, and so she's kind of the center of attention in most places she goes, and so we get a lot of generally, I think, positive comments. The one comment that we did get also some of that, sort of tying this back in, was it felt like people said, "Oh, that's such a good thing you're doing." Like there was a lot of comments like that, which that is a very, very nice, like it's a very well-meaning comment, but almost like we had donated some money to charity, or we're like going to a soup kitchen to serve a meal. It was like what we were doing, and it almost made it feel like, oh, well, we're like that it was really born out of like, this is how we wanted to add to our family. Like it wasn't a checklist on a charity, bucket list or something like that. And so like sometimes we struggled with that, almost like how to kind of receive that in a positive way, even though people would say it was a very well-meaning thing. But usually, like if you just say, "Oh, my wife's pregnant," people wouldn't say, "Oh, that's such a like noble thing you're doing," or like that's it. Right. It doesn't. It's a little bit of a different response.
Right.
I don't know if you've dealt with that, Dave, at all, or like
not yet.
That. Yeah.
We have gotten a lot of, why aren't you adopting from America? We've gotten a lot of that.
Yeah. And you know what I just say to that, because it is such a need. I'm sure there's guys listening that have fostered and adopted domestically, such an amazing need. But I've always thought like to those people, like, and this might come across as a little rude, is to say like, well, why don't you adopt from America? Because there's a lot of kids that you could adopt. Like that's sort of like, that's not that I would actually say that, but like, it's sort of like a need is not necessarily a call on your life. Like there's actually would be a great need for me to go. There's a great need for me to like go, I don't know, do malaria education in certain parts of the country or the world where they don't know about malaria. That's a great need, but I'm not called to do that. And so there's, we felt called to adopt internationally for a variety of reasons as opposed to domestically. And that doesn't mean one's better than other or any way, but there is a lot, it is a natural question, and not a wrong question, but it's also like, well, this is kind of our journey and what we feel called to.
I love that. That's a great answer. I think that's funny. So I want to circle back around. So Ethiopia closes. That probably was tough. Did you guys recover from that quickly, or did you kind of like settle and like, well, where are we going to go from here?
Well, we worked with a great agency called America World Adoption out of Northern Virginia. We really loved them and trusted them, and they had a developing India program, and they also have a program in China, as they do in some other countries. And so we just started thinking, okay, this Ethiopia, it did take us probably a few months where it felt like sort of the death of a dream, where we had to mourn the loss of the fact that we would not bring a child home from Ethiopia and have an Ethiopian child in our family. And as we processed through that, we talked to our agency a lot, and they said, hey, we'd really encourage you to consider India. There's a need for people to adopt there. And then it just became very intriguing. It's a country, it's the second largest country in the world. It's an amazing country and an amazing culture. And as we were hearing about it, we just felt more and more drawn to that. And we appreciated the program that our agency was running in India. And so about just a few months after Ethiopia closed, we transitioned to India. And within like a few months, we had a referral for our daughter from India, which was amazing.
That's awesome. Did you get to pick, or did you have a gender preference? I know that some places do, some places do.
Yeah, we did not. We're open to either gender. India does. The children that are referred for adoption internationally from India are special needs children, as China is a similar situation. A lot of people might know this, but like special needs as defined in one country might not be the way it's defined in another country. And so our daughter was defined with some special needs that actually have really, she's done remarkably well, health-wise. That's certainly not the case of every child. We've also been able to get some really, really amazing medical assistance here in the United States. We actually got a grant from the Sparrow Fund, which is how we know you, Dave, to do some basically to like look at medical records of our daughter and get professional medical advice as we went into the adoption, so we knew what the exact medical situation was. And Sparrow Fund is a great organization that does that grant and offers medical advice for adoptive international situations. So anyways, but yeah, but we did not have a gender preference actually. And then we were referred a little girl, and we're excited to add a little girl to our family with 3 boys.
So here's the crux of what I got to have you on. I kind of got around, but I got to get into it. All right. So number one, did you take your sons with you, or at least your 2 oldest? Yeah. You did.
Yeah, we took our 14 and 11. They're now 14 and 11. They were 12 and 9 at the time. We took them with us to India for 2 weeks to bring our daughter home. It was phenomenal to have them with us. It was amazing. We had to leave our 2-year-old at the time, who's now 4, at home. We could not have brought a 2-year-old for the traveling around India that we were doing. But yes, we brought our 2 older boys, and it was a great move to have them with us on that trip.
All right. So when you told your sons, how did they react? Because my sons were kind of like, yeah, and they've had their moments, but It wasn't like a movie moment. I called a movie moment, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How did your sons respond? Your two oldest, obviously, since your youngest was very, very only two, they didn't really know any better.
Yeah. You know, it was really interesting because we had the referral and we were waiting 9 months. And then all of a sudden there was all this documentation that just came through really fast right at the end. And then they called us on a Tuesday at the end of June. And they said, we want you in India in a week. Yeah. We had no plane tickets. Yeah. So it's like, I'm sure there's people listening. Like, I'm thinking, okay, we have to fly our family to India. We actually were scheduled to go on a vacation to the Outer Banks of North Carolina with 8 of my college friends, with all these families that week. And so it was far from being a movie moment when I told my two oldest sons. They were in tears because they were missing this vacation, you know, and we actually really
You're the worst, Dad. You're the worst.
Yeah. And so, but then it was actually really cool. They came around to saying, because I was saying to them, hey, like, this is your sister in India. Like, we're going to go get her. Like, we're not going to go on a vacation and wait to get her. If you were halfway around the world in an orphanage, like, we would just come get you. Like, we wouldn't, you know. And so it ended up being kind of a cool thing. But no, you know, the movie moment, Dave, is like, I think there are a lot of adoption movies and YouTube things, and it's a beautiful thing. But hey, I'll tell you, we've had a lot of moments with adoption and just with parenting in our house that would not make for movie moments, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe bad movie
I feel
moments.
You bring your daughter home. What was having 3 biological sons? How did that change your house? Because I'm excited to hear this answer, because I am really unsure how my house is going to change when my daughter eventually comes home.
Yeah, well, a lot more like hair product, I would say. Like, a lot more bows for the hair. We got like an Amazon shipment of like a box of like 50 hair bows. I'm thinking, oh, this is different, you know. But it was, yes, very, very different to have a little girl after 3 boys. You know, with 3, we were used to we were just passing clothes from one kid to the next, unless they just blew out the knees of those sweatpants. Yeah,
exactly.
And we were, you know, we did t-ball, and then coach pitch baseball, and then we knew all the stuff to do like with boys. And I think Abby, my wife, was really just loved being a boy mom. She really embraced it. She's great with the boys. Not that she's not great with our little daughter, with our girl, but that was just a huge change, obviously, to have a girl. And even just down to changing the diaper of a girl versus a boy, not to get too graphic, but I was like, oh, I gotta like learn all this stuff, and I gotta learn, like, I don't know what outfits where you gotta put tights on with some outfits. And I'm just thinking, can I just throw in like sweatpants and a Red Sox t-shirt like every day, like I did with my other boys? And so those are sort of some of the shallow things, I guess. But, you know, it is definitely a big change. But I mean, having 3 older brothers, pretty great. Who knows? She might not go on a date until she's like 29 years old with those guys, you know, watching her. But but it was great. It's been a really, really fun transition.
Did your sons Did your sons buy into it like as brothers, or did it take a little while?
No, they bought in. It was hardest on our 3-year-old. I think he was. I mean, I should know he was actually not quite 3 when our daughter came home. And that's one of the interesting things about an adopt that you'll learn as you bring your daughter home, is like, when you have biological children, you bring a newborn baby home who really does not do a lot when you bring them home. Like, they cry and they don't sleep, but they just kind of sit there and they like slowly develop. But we brought home a 15-month-old girl who could walk and talk a little bit and had a lot of desires and had a pretty strong will. And so our 2-year-old 2/3-year-old is like, he just got this sister who's now in his space and throwing his Matchbox cars and taking all his stuff. And whereas like when you bring a newborn baby home, that baby's not like just getting right into all the stuff. So that was the biggest challenge was on our youngest boy, I think, or like biggest adjustment, I would say. You know, our older boys, they really embraced it and actually were quite helpful in as far as getting them food and doing sort of small-ish type things to help. And that's just been, I think you're going to love having 4 kids.
So I really enjoyed hearing the fact that your sons bought in and they were helpful. That's great. I really hope for that my sons will do the same thing. My grandmother told us that when they brought home my aunts, that it was kind of a novelty for about a month. And then my uncles, now they were quite a bit older. They were 14 and 16. My dad was
interesting.
16.
Yeah.
But it was fun for a little bit, but then the novelty wore off, and then we let them get locks on their doors so their sisters wouldn't come and touch all their stuff with their guitars.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hearing that, I was like, man, that reminds me.
I will tell you, there have been some broken Lego sets and art projects that hasn't, you know, maybe the novelty is worn off there. But I will say, just having a larger family, I think it teaches kids as they get, our oldest is 14, teenagers, you know, the world kind of revolves around them, as it does for a lot of us. But it's like, hey, we got a 2-year-old. Like, this family is just not just all about you. Like, you got to help with this and that, and that's been a helpful thing, I think, as those kids as our oldest get a little older.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So, when as you had a biological son, and then you adopted, how did that change your marriage? Like, in what ways did you did that strain or put more stress, or maybe it didn't?
I don't know that adoption has necessarily changed it. I just think like having a 4-year-old and 2-year-old is like kind of a stressful situation while also having teenagers. So we're navigating like, hey, when do we get our kids cell phones, and how do we deal with teaching them about social media and all the stuff that's out, you know, in the world. And then we're doing potty training, and, you know, we would get our youngest kids to bed at like 7:30. And it feels like, you know, when you have young kids, sometimes it's like the 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It feels like you've, you know, gone through, you know, a war. And then you get them in bed, and then we'd come downstairs and our 2 older guys are like, what are we doing? Are we watching a movie? Are we going out to ice cream? And you're like, I like want to collapse, you know, on the couch. So that's like a little bit of a challenge, I think. So I don't know. I feel like it's just the challenges of having 4 kids and having younger kids has been harder necessarily than the fact that our youngest is adopted, actually. That's not true of everyone. She's attached quite well to us and us to her. So it's been a blessing. But it's just a like kind of a larger family. It's been a little bit more of a challenge.
Do you find yourself having to be more mindful as you plan time with your sons to try to make them, you know, is that something that's something I've been trying to think of? Like, how do I be more? Yeah. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, no. And I do think that I think that sometimes there has to be, right, because our oldest, especially, like if they didn't, sometimes it feels like our 14-year-old and 11-year-old get almost like weighed down by the younger kids. Like, we can't just, hey, let's just take off and go skiing, or let's just go do this, or let's do that, because we have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and we can't just always take off and go do that. And they got nap times, and they, you know, this kind of thing. And so sometimes we just have to be cognizant of like, hey, you know, my wife was great in like, you know, a few weeks ago, she said like, hey, you just need to take them up skiing for a day, and they need to get some time, like just doing that or things like that. We do have to be like a little bit more intentional about sort of finding time for them, because sometimes it does feel like they've sacrificed some things in this process as well, even though it wasn't fully their choice, you know. But we hope that over the long run, it's a blessing for them as well.
Do you find that is something that maybe they show like anger or frustration towards you guys from that, or have you seen anything like
They have not. No, they haven't. Which has been we're glad that it hasn't. Like, they have felt they've enjoyed are having younger children, and they'll say a lot. I mean, I can't imagine life without these 2 younger kids, and They even have friends over this afternoon. Came home and there were like 5 middle school kids bouncing on our trampoline, the COVID trampoline, and they like pull the 4-year-old and 2-year-old on the trampoline with them and are just jumping around, and they're engaging, and it's like they just like brought them right into their world, what they were doing. It was really fun, so if it was like, hey, if we don't have a lawsuit here, this is actually going to be a really fun afternoon. And it was.
You get the waiver signed. Got to get the parents to sign that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
No waiver, no jump. Is that's what you should put on that side.
I know. Should have.
It is a scary thought. All right, man. I it's like late. I don't want to keep you, so I'm going to end off our show with our traditional like fifth down end of the show questions. All right.
Great.
What is your favorite thing to do with your children?
Oh man, that is good. I'd have to say, most recently, well, man, during COVID, our favorite thing was either to go to the beach or like go on a hike. That was a lot of fun. My wife's family lives out in Cincinnati, sort of out towards the Midwest, and we have done a number of drives to her house. It's a 14-hour drive. It's a 17-hour day in the car with stops. And it sounds crazy. We have had a ton of fun on these 17-hour road trips with our kids, just making memories and letting them eat like a lot of fruit snacks and a lot of sugar. And we've had a lot of fun on these road trips. We've probably done that trip 10 or 12 times and have really enjoyed it. So that's more of like that's not something you would just do every day. But we like going to the beach a lot too.
You're a better parent than me, because usually my car trips are not that much fun.
Well, they watch their fair share of DVDs and stuff like that too, but it's been kind of fun.
We decided that we're only going to have 2 of everything. So there's always be one kid that's going to be left out. So we think that's more fun. So someone's going to be upset.
Someone's going to be crying. Hey, that just makes it fun.
All right. So what is your biggest struggle being a dad of 4?
Impatience, period. End of story. Lock it down, take it to the bank. I mean, it is just, I never knew how impatient I was until I had kids. And then I had 2 and then 3 and then 4, and didn't realize that I could get increasingly more impatient with these humans that have their own will. And it just shows. I also just realized, Dave, there's like so many times where I'm like, I just want to rush through like to get something done. And then I'm thinking like, they want to stay in the tub for like 25 minutes or 30. Like they just want to have fun. And I'm like, let's get in the tub. Let's get out. Why? Like, sometimes you need to do something or go somewhere, but a lot of times they just want to enjoy the moment, and I just want to get it done. And so, but I, that's more of a humorous thing, but there is a lot of impatience, and I see my own faults at play in huge ways in the way I'm very, very frequently impatient to them.
You're preaching to the choir. All right. I ask everybody this question. What would you put on a billboard about adoption to other possible dads? So you're driving down the highway. You can put one billboard up. What would you put on that for anybody that's considering fostering or adopting?
That's great. That is really good. Man, I would probably put adoption, just do it. But I guess what I mean is I just think there's such a need for adoption. I know obviously it's expensive. It's time consuming. We talked about the wait, but there's such a need. And the same is true for fostering. Like it's just it's a huge need. And if you are listening and you feel like you have a home that is loving and you have like a stable marriage, or, like there's kids that need that, need that family that you can offer them.
I think that as dads, I've really come to realize that we're just afraid, and it's just hard to admit that we're afraid. And I think, part of it being hurt. And I know for me, thinking about at one point being a foster family, I was like, could I love a child to come to my home and then have to tell them goodbye? And yeah, we looked at that route, and I love the way you just do it. I think we just have to kind of try it. And there's you could fail, but that you could fail at playing Madden, as I find out, finds out. So, but I love that. So, all right, last
and you
question.
probably will fail.
Oh yeah.
And all these aspects, because you'll fail at parenting biological.
Oh, I'm already failing. It's I made a bad call in our football game today. So, I mean, It's I fail all the time, but that's part of life, and you have to learn from it, and just try not to fail too much. All right. So what's the best advice? And you kind of answered it with your billboard. What's the best advice you can give an adoptive or foster dad?
That's good. I think our prayer for our little girl is that we pray that she would know how much God loves her and how much we love her. That's like the kind of constant refrain, is like, just pray that your kids would know how much you love them. And getting back to the impatience, I think there's times I demonstrate that I love my kids, and times where I frankly do not demonstrate that I love my kids. I demonstrate that I love myself more, but I want over time for them to be convinced of my love, and then that would point them to the love that God the Father has for them. So I think pray that you'd be able to, that they would know your love, and that ultimately you would be able to display that love, as much as possible. The other thing I'd say to adoptive dads: seek help, ask questions. This podcast you're doing, Dave, is awesome. It's trying to, create a community of people that have adopted. It is different adopting than having biological kids. So get in communities of people who have experienced things like you have. I'll give a shout out to the Sparrow Fund. They do a lot beyond just giving grants. They do retreats and try to create networks of adoptive parents to come together to have discussions and forums, and just hearing from other people that have traveled those roads and hearing that things are normal, and that things are challenging, and it has been very helpful. So get help, reach out, and social media is another great place. There's a lot of Facebook groups and things like that for adoptive parents and families.
I like the way that you to make community, and I think dads especially. Because there's a ton of things out there for moms, or at least that have true. A lot of moms in them, like the podcast. I think like I told you before we started, when I started looking at listening to podcasts on adoption, almost all of them were led by moms, like the adoptive mom podcast. They're good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think, it's hard for guys to relate. And even if they got on a podcast with moms, you're still kind of like, it's like usually a one and done, or, my husbands are on and
I love what you're doing with the Adoptive Dad Playbook, and saying, like, I think I've been to a number of some adoptive retreats, marriage retreats for adoptive couples. And sometimes it feels like, frankly, the wife or the woman is driving the adoption process. And that's fine. Sometimes that happens where one spouse might be more quick to embrace it than another. But I would say, like, guys, as dads, like, embrace your identity as a dad and an adoptive dad, and seek help, talk to other people, get in community with dads, because all the research would show how incredibly important a dad is in the life of a child. It is a huge responsibility and privilege. That does not mean that a mom is not important on any level at all. But I think sometimes when the dad is absent, which frankly, if one parent is absent, it's oftentimes the dad, that weight is felt. And that's a real challenge. So anyways, dads, get after it and get help, and get connected with other adoptive dads.
Very eloquently put, and I appreciate your words. You can tell that you speak frequently because you're such a polished speaker. Your words you're like a wordsmith, the way you put it.
Oh, well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. I'll put it on my business card.
Yeah, he's there. Well, I mean, Bjorn, number one, great name. Number two, I love your open and honesty that you shared, and especially hearing that your sons didn't want to kill your daughter when they brought her home. I appreciate hearing that. So I just don't know what to expect whenever we get home. We talk about taking our sons whenever we get that chance, but right now, COVID, you have to stay there for 2 weeks. So that'd be pretty much.
Oh man, I know that's hard. We were thankful we be able to bring our daughter home before COVID, and a lot of the waiting, as you know, during this time has been especially challenging. Yeah.
But man, thanks for coming on, and you just really appreciate taking the time. I know it's 10:30 where you're at night. And you're in your rocking chair already. You already drank his tea, so.
I I am an old, uncool man.
We've already discussed that. We know that you.
Yeah, that's right.
Words.
But I love a good rocking chair. So,
but I appreciate it, and I think that you really help a lot of people. So, Bjorn, man, have a great week, and I'm sure I'll talk to you in the future at some point. And I appreciate.
Yes, absolutely. This was great. Love the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Love what you're doing, Dave. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bjorn. Hey, thanks for listening in. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was really good. He had some phenomenal information, and I really appreciate Bjorn. Thank you for coming on. If you guys need anything, if you have any prayer requests that I can pray for you about, if you have any questions, I put you in contact with people that could help you, please email me at theadoptivedadplaybook@gmail.com or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. If you have any show ideas or a guest you think would be good, love to hear from you. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a great week. And till then, see ya.
Thanks for listening to the Adoptive Dad Playbook. Be sure to follow us on social media